Hi there. Welcome to the Poetry Boards podcast with Tola and Filippo. This is Tola, and on this episode of the podcast, I have a conversation with Joy Ryan. She's an entrepreneur based in London who trains people in workshops on the process communication model. Enjoy the podcast. So for anyone who's listening, I'm speaking with Joy, and we're going to be talking about PCM, which is the process communication model, which is incredible.
Oh,
And it is. You don't think so?
no, I think it's really great. I think it's really great. That's why I wanted to share it with all of you. But it's so nice to hear that you think it's amazing and you called it the future. So yeah, I'm
It
super.
is the future. It is the future. At least it's going to be a huge part of the future, I think.
Woohoo.
But before we get into all that, I feel it'd be nice to know a little bit more about you and basically how you go into PCM and all that good stuff. So I'll start by asking, where is Joy from?
Oh, okay, cool. Where's Joy from? So I was born in Singapore, but I grew up in a place called Brunei. And then I came to London for university like a long time ago. And I'm still in London, which is great. So yeah, that's my very quick biography.
Where's the accent from?
Yeah, that's good question. You're really good at this. So I went to international school. It was a British international school. So it's really curious that all the kids speak like me. I think it's from watching lots of Friends and like a lot of American TV shows growing up. It's like this nondescript accent. Yeah.
So Singapore, do a lot of people speak this way, or is it a certain class of individuals, or what's the situation there?
So I was like in Singapore for a minute, and the moment I was born, I was taken back to Brunei. So it was in Brunei that I went to school.
I see.
Yeah, and went to national school there. Yeah.
Okay. So do a lot of people like speak like that in Brunei, or?
Good. Okay. So I don't know. I think people from this is a huge sweeping like generalization. Sure. I think a lot of people there learn British English, like how to write and spell like British English, but they watch a lot of American TV shows. So most people, I don't even know if like maybe unconsciously aspire to speak with an Americanized twang. Maybe.
Interesting. That sounds a bit like Nigeria, actually, because
really?
Nigeria, yeah, absolutely. I think if you go to a good school, in quote, you're taught to write in British English. But because everyone listens to rap music and watch Hollywood movies and all that kind of stuff, everyone aspires subconsciously to speak like an American.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think so that kind of makes sense. I'm surprised, but I'm not. I'm quite fascinated to know that's not just unique to Nigerians. So,
wait. So how does your British accent rank in Nigeria? Like, is it like, whoa,
I'm not even sure.
Cool, or is it like, oh, it's not American?
I'm not even sure it's classified as anything really, because, like I said, I think growing up, the Nigerian accent, but there's also the Americanized version.
Oh yeah.
And then, of course, we moved out here a while back and picked up a bit of the British accent, I suppose. So it's just like a mishmash of. I just try to make sure that people understand what I'm saying. That's the best I can do, to be honest. You know what I mean?
You're a child of the world. That's what it is.
I'm definitely very tolerant of everyone. So
That was very PC there.
absolutely,
Well
absolutely,
done.
absolutely. Yeah, thanks. Um, what did you study?
Oh, wow. What did I study? Tell you what I wanted to study. I wanted to study English literature. That was what I wanted to study first, but I
Oh,
have
why is that?
Asian parents. Oh, well, it was like my favorite, it was one of my favorite subjects in school. And I love
Okay.
reading and I love analyzing. I used to, like, I was a really annoying Asian kid who had an opinion about everything in English. It was like, what does this prose mean? And my hand would go right up. It's like, I think they used it because they were trying to evoke this thing and went on forever. So yeah, I loved it. But yeah, I have a tiger mom, like we're Chinese by ethnicity, so she wouldn't let
Okay.
me do English literature. So
So
she's
what was the
the
default?
compromise.
Yeah.
So she got me, well, she wanted me to do software engineering, and we came to a compromise on business management. So I ended up going to London. I went to the LSE to study a BSc in management, and to this day,
Interesting.
it's helped. I think it helps you think more flexibly, but I
Yes, about the world. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. What do you study?
What did I study? I studied, well, my undergrad was media.
All right,
So
cool.
I'll take it from the back a little bit. So I never really knew what I wanted to do because I always
Oh, cool. Me
had so
too.
many
Yeah.
interests.
Nice.
Exactly.
That's good.
Um, but I ended up studying media because that was like the default. I think I did better in media than I did in English and art. So
Wait,
that
you
was like,
had media in
okay,
school? You had media in high school?
yeah. So
Oh,
we came out
wow.
here
Cool.
when I was 16. So I did my A levels here. So it was based on my A levels that I ended up doing media.
Oh, cool.
But then I ended up also doing a master's, and I did that in innovation, entrepreneurship, and management. So, like
Oh,
you
nice.
said, so
Very
I
modern
can kind of
degrees.
identify what you're saying. Sorry.
Very modern, like very modern degrees.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
They didn't even
absolutely.
offer media when I was in school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why I'm really surprised. I'm like, I wouldn't have known to take media. That's the thing I didn't get.
You know what? Here's the thing about media. Media, people always think it's how do I say this in the nicest way? People think it's not the toughest subject to take, right?
I'm
But
sure they make it tough. Like there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. I'm sure of it.
no, yeah, absolutely, because I not just because I took it, but because objectively, if you think about it, we interact with media. That's all we do. It's either you're on Facebook, Instagram, on a blog, watching
Yeah.
TV, listening
Yeah.
to the radio, whatever. So if you understand, and if you, so it's one thing to take it for granted as a consumer, but it's another thing to actually try to create
Yeah.
the art form. You know what I mean? So it's like
Agreed. I
exactly,
totally okay. I feel the pain right now. I
exactly.
understand it. It's like 100 skills. That's what it is. It's like you want to
Exactly.
enter the
So
space.
exactly. So imagine the simplest illustration is watch a really good movie, then watch a really bad movie, and
Yeah.
you can see everything that's good about media is in the good movie, and everything that's probably missing
Yeah.
in the knowledge of the director in the bad movie is represented in the bad movie. So that's the
That's a
simplest
nice
illustration I can get.
analogy. It's very simple. Like I can tell you simplified it, but it makes a very strong point.
No. I think it's that's one of the best ways to communicate it because, like I said, you can
Yeah.
take a good movie for granted until you see a bad one. Then you go, oh my gosh, does this guy know what he's doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So did you enjoy management at all?
Wow. I I had an existential crisis in my second year because I was like, why am I studying this? And what sort of significance does this have on my life? I struggled with that like
Oh my
hard.
god, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, at least when you went to media, you're like, oh, like it helps deepen your appreciation for like, social media or like when you given the literal example of watching a movie and what's a good story, how to tell a good story using different mediums. But
Mm-hmm.
management was like, here's some maths, here's some stats, here's some economics about some very theoretical situation about used cars. And I was like, I have no idea why I'm doing this. But I think on hindsight, like I found my appreciation for what I did maybe a couple of years later, because something I noticed that they were trying to teach us is, hey, what if you had all this information? How many ways can you like flexibly organize this so it would create
Absolutely.
different stories or sense? So I was like, huh. I wish I knew this while I was suffering in school. Big time. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I actually went on to do the innovation course, because
Yeah.
I felt like, based on, despite all I felt I knew, I
Yeah.
felt that there was a knowledge of the world that I was missing in terms of creating a business plan, in terms
Yeah.
of
How do you make something?
finance. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
So,
that was your master's, and did they get you to make stuff while you were doing it?
well, I did my master's at Imperial, so it was like a really like
Oh my God,
intensive
yeah. Very
course.
applied.
Sorry.
Very applied, like most.
Exactly. So we had 6 months of they call it an entrepreneurial journey. So you literally build a business while you're doing the masters.
Oh my
So it
God.
was very, very intense, but it was very rewarding. I mean, because we had to pitch the ideas constantly, refine the ideas. You had to butt heads with your
Co-worker.
colleagues, which I loved. I love doing that, because I think, not to be antagonistic, but I liked the, I would
The sharp,
say,
right? Like iron.
yes, get
Sharp
that. It's
kind of
about the
thing.
idea. It's about the idea. Yeah,
Yeah. Wait, what did you
fundamentally.
build?
Sorry.
What did you build? Like, what was your idea?
Oh my gosh. For the life of me, I cannot remember. Actually,
Remember the
I
process
know I
more.
wanted. I
That's a
know
good
I
course.
wanted to build. Sorry.
That's a good course. You remember the process more than the product.
I definitely remember absolutely. I like your thinking, because it wasn't really about the product, because I wanted to do something with tech,
Yeah.
but that didn't really come to fruition. So we ended up doing something a little non-tech,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why my interest. I lost interest because I had to kind of get through it, but it wasn't the first choice idea that I had.
Oh.
But it was still something that I was proud of,
Yeah.
whatever it was. you
It was
know.
a compromise
So
and you made it through. That's important.
exactly,
Yeah. That's
exactly.
good.
Um. So after you finished your BA, what did you go on to do?
Ah, right. Sorry to be super pedantic. I feel like I worked really hard. I got BSc. I was like working my ass off to like try to get through the course. Anyway, yeah,
All right.
BSc. I was like, should I correct him? I was like, oh, but I did work hard. I cried so much. Anyway,
No.
so
Absolutely, absolutely. Be free. Be free.
uh, so after that, leave. So when I graduated, just so you know, when I graduated, Lehman's crashed. That was a horrible financial crisis.
2008. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, a lot of your listeners like won't remember, but it was a horrible time to graduate, especially when you're not European. So I got the first
Mm,
job someone would offer me after doing like a non-paid internship. I did that I think I did my non-paid for an advertising agency, and
okay.
then I did something with a luxury brand that used to make like leather goods for like really famous people, like the royal family apparently. So I know a lot of little secrets. But after
Interesting.
that, I don't know if you can air this. Anyway, so after that, my first real job was in recruitment. And I was interviewed by a really lovely Australian man. He
hmm
was trying to replace someone who was experienced in his team. And honestly, I was like so desperate for a job at that point because I thought, oh my God, if I don't get a job, I won't live in London. Like I just can't continue my life here. And no one else was
hmm
hiring someone who wasn't from the EU.
Yeah.
So I was super, super lucky. And I started my full time, like my kind of first full time job in hiring for asset managers. And
Okay.
that was an interesting experience. I was like fresh out of university. Everyone else on my team were like closing into their 30s and they were all men. It was a very weird dynamic to
Was
be.
it intimidating or was it just weird?
I think it was they were lovely people socially. I think the
Uh-huh.
problem was at some point I started to perform well. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and I did it in a way where I wasn't like constantly on the phone, like trying to call people, which is kind of what traditional recruitment looked like. I hated talking to people on the phone. I was
Uh-huh.
very millennial, like trying to get this work done. And somehow that was working for me. And I remember like one of the folks I was working with, who was, actually he was a very nice man, but I think he was kind of
Uh-huh.
annoyed at me. So he started making these jokes where he would like pick up my phone. He was sitting next to me, would pick up my phone and be like, "Oh, I'm just checking that it's working." And then he would just like put it down. Yeah,
Oh dear.
I
Passive
know.
aggressive, huh?
Yeah, very much. Yeah. It was like,
Uh,
I think everyone's first place of work is always going to bring about like very steep learning curves and also how to deal with a lot of negative behaviors, which I wish
Absolutely.
where I wish I knew what to do when I was that age. Yeah. But anyway.
Absolutely. That actually brings back some memories actually, because my first job was in consulting,
Oh my God.
and
Oh my God.
yeah.
Long hours? Like long hours,
Well,
given like all the grunt work.
now and again, now and again. But I think I think because what I'm picturing is you doing your job well, but in your own way. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm very
Exactly. That
quiet.
that was that. Exactly. That was my approach, and I got a lot of, "Oh, you don't do it this way." I'm like, "Well, I did it properly, right?" And say, "Yes, yes, but you're too quiet. You're too laid back. You don't." I'm like, "You don't. Do you want me to jump on the tables? Like, what
Yeah.
exactly do you want, right?"
Jump through hoops
Exactly.
to get
So
punched.
there was a lot of passive aggressive behavior, and you're like, "Okay, like let's get on with this," you know. So I can identify with your experience because I can
How long
imagine
did you
you're like,
put up with
okay,
it for? Did you stay there for long?
I was there for about 2 years, I think, 2 years, and then there was a redundancy, and I think I had the opportunity to stay,
Yeah.
but I was just like, no, no, I can't take
No
it anymore.
more.
No, no, exactly. So I
Yeah.
kind of just I cut my losses and I got out of there.
Good.
Um, yeah.
Good.
So during the workshop, so for anyone listening, Joy organizes and facilitates workshops for process communication. This is the process communication model. This is PCM, and I think listening to you talk now,
Mm.
um, I get a sense that you're very much in that mode because I think you do this. Do you do this every day?
Um,
The Or
you mean
almost every
training?
day. Training, yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's
Or
kind
frequently enough.
it's yeah, it's I mean, I do it definitely every week. I'll have something every week. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How did you get into that? Because I remember you mentioned some lady who was tough. Like I remember you were describing when you were describing someone's personality, you were describing some short lady who was really tough. Which
Yeah.
job was that, by the way?
Oh, right. That was my second job. Yeah.
Ah, what was that?
It was this whole like my job trajectory has been like nothing short of dramatic. I mean, it doesn't feel dramatic at the moment, but when you look back, you're like, wow, difficult personalities all around. So it was my second job, and I left my first job kind of like, well, maybe less than 2 years in. I think I that was
Okay.
where I learned like this big lesson of, hey, you know what? Like you only really have one health. And if your job is
Yeah,
stressing you out so much to a point where it's affecting your health, it's better to cut your losses and look for something else. So I was looking for
absolutely.
something else. I was trying to do something. I was trying to go into headhunting, which is a little different. It's more research based, and you deal with you're kind of seen to be an expert in like a certain area. So I was like, oh, I'd love to like go a little deeper with this. So I think I might have sent so many applications out. Everyone was looking for someone experienced, and
Yeah, 10 years and all that stuff.
yeah, 3 years or more. And I know they don't count what you've done like in a recruitment firm. So I think I must have gone for like 20 interviews until I got this job. But I'm telling you, it's like
Wow,
20 interviews that wear down your soul. Like, it's like
I
one
can
of those
imagine.
things where
Yeah.
like, yeah, I feel like even further away from where you needed to get to.
Mm,
But
mm,
eventually ended up working for a tiny, like it was a really small, a tiny company, and they
mm,
did all the recruitment for one of the, like I guess one of the biggest private wealth managers. Um, I think def is it in the world or in the UK? Can't remember. But yeah, and that was very tough because difficult I had a really difficult boss. Yeah. A difficult
The
boss.
short lady.
Yeah, she was like a tiny, tiny Welsh woman.
Ah, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I remember you
Very
describing her multiple
intimidating.
times during the workshops. So I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, this
yeah,
lady
I
had this
did.
lady obviously had an impact on you.
Yeah, big time. I mean, to be fair though, I've only ever had three bosses in my life, which I'm quite grateful for. Like just three bosses before I decided to jump away and like do my own thing and just never have a boss again. So she was my
Yeah.
second one. And yeah, she was very tough and yeah, quite very intimidating. I mean, now looking back through the lens of PCM, I can see why she was doing what she was doing, but I mean, kind of just jumping ahead into the model, like she had a personality that was probably inverse of mine. So everything that she was
Mm.
showing at the time, I didn't really understand how to interact with it.
Or
Um,
counter. Yeah.
yeah, or counter or like, yeah, get on board with what she was doing. It was funny though, because like all the while I was like quite scared and intimidated by her while working for her. And then at one
Oh, that's
point,
terrible.
yeah, it was not definitely not good for anyone. And everyone else were like in their late 40s. I was really like the youngest person there, and there were five other people and they were all in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So like no one really to be friends with. And I think the reason why I left was because she told me something that I just thought, wow, like is is that really how she sees me? It was like super positive, right? She said something in a really backhanded way. She said something like, Joy, you're so smart. I don't know why like you're doing this. And I don't know what
Oh wow.
referred to, but I just thought, you're right. I am smart. Why am I here? Like I had that moment. I was like, why am I here subjecting myself to this thing? Like I should go and have a look at what else there is out there, right? So yeah, she kind of inadvertently helped me think like, wow, I have way more value than I thought I had. But
That's
you know,
such an interesting story. Wow. Wow. So this lady who was basically a nightmare inadvertently kind of pointed you in the right direction, almost like get out of here. So,
it was a bit like that. It was so weird. I think everyone, not everyone, one other person in the office told me the same thing, but he was slightly drunk at a lunch gap, like sort of a office lunch Christmas thing, right? And he was
mm,
like, what are you doing here? You have so much potential. You should just go elsewhere and like, do something. And I think when you're very young, you haven't collected enough skills. You question yourself so much that it does take someone outside of you to say, hey, you know what, Tola, like you're intelligent, you're super smart. Why are you putting up with this crap? And why aren't you looking for more? So yeah, I think I mean, it was not done in the most constructive way, but I
no.
think, yeah, no,
But the
but
message
it
got
was it was
across, right?
definitely a wake up call. And yeah, I think after that I moved jobs, and I think that was where I started to kind of gain a lot of my confidence back because I had a much better manager there who was just like, you know what, you're smarter than me and I know that you can do this way better. So go do
Wow.
it.
So what was this job? What was this new job?
Yeah, sure. So when I was hired into this job, so it was for a fintech investor that also had a strategic consulting arm. And inside the strategic
Nice.
arm, yeah, they were also like placing people inside their portfolio company. So they were kind of like I mean, not half. So they had lots of little arms. The headhunting arm was inside of them too. They did work with like bigger corporations, but they were also helping their portfolio companies. And when I was hired, they wanted half of me to do that and half of me to set up something they called the Anthemis Fellowship. So this fellowship was supposed to be like the alternative MBA, you know, for
Interesting.
yeah, it's like they were trying to break things. They were trying to break a lot of conventions, which I loved. And
Yeah.
for them, it was like, why are you paying so much money to go to do an MBA at some Ivy League or whatever INSEAD, and you pay them. You're paying like so much money just to get like the
Yeah.
connection,
Yeah.
maybe
Money's
the right
ridiculous.
places.
Mhm, mm,
Yeah,
mm.
when you could firstly, come join us. We give you a stipend and you work for do some work with our portfolio companies and with our corporate partners, and you work with us. So you have like a lot of really great experiences and a wonderful network, which you didn't have to pay for. Yeah. So that was the idea. So I was there to kind of more or less give it legs because when I first joined, there was like nothing there. Yeah. So that was my job, really.
Did you enjoy it? In itself, in the broader sense of
Uh,
what you were
yeah.
expected to achieve.
Yeah. I think when you're young, like, when you're in your 20s, you
Hmm.
feel unlimited, right? Like you have just so much time and energy to give something that you don't understand what your limits are. And
Hmm.
I love the mission. Like, I'm persister based. So like I was like all for
Yes, yes.
like yeah. Yeah. I was like, I believe in this. And so I pushed myself and and they were bootstrapping, which meant, they were technically paying me to half of me to do this when it was really five people's jobs. And so I
Oh
was
wow.
a bootstrapper and I worked round the clock to make things happen. And yeah, I definitely burnt out like like two times, like maybe twice while I was there. It was like flaming out where like my health just like it crashed and then I started again and I
Oh
crashed.
my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
know, but
gosh.
you're optimistic 20, right? You're like, hey, the world is my oyster. I can do everything. My work is my life. And
I
yeah,
understand that, but it sounds. I mean, I think it's good to work hard. Absolutely. I think the first two jobs obviously weren't adequate in terms of fulfillment. This one sounds a little more
had
right
a
for you.
purpose. Had a
Yeah,
purpose.
had a purpose, but I still got a sense that like I said, you burnt out, so your health was at risk at each of these jobs, essentially.
It was, yeah, kind of not, I wouldn't say at risk is more like, I don't know if you've ever done like, you slept so little over a prolonged period of time and then
Hmm.
your health just gives out. It's like you got a fever and you
So
can't.
describe that for me. Is it your mental health? Is it your
Oh,
physical health? Is it
physical.
both?
It's physical. It's like you haven't taken care of yourself enough and your body just like can't keep up.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, it's like a really, really bad, like, I mean, every once in a while, right? Like you just crash into a really bad flu. So it is a bit like that, but it's a buildup. You don't sleep, you don't eat properly, you're constantly like buzzed, and then
Mm, mm.
you gotta rest.
So, you somehow you managed to get out of that situation as well in terms of maybe your health coming back together. At what point did you decide to go out and do your own thing, which is
Yeah.
PCM?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know, but PCM is a very like teaching and training is super new to me. I only picked it up like I had the idea middle of last year. I did my first class, like in-person class, and it was an experiment really, in December. And I
Okay.
started really like teaching people from April and May. So it's very, very new.
Okay.
I
You do
learned.
very well, by the way.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
absolutely,
That's really
yeah,
kind.
yeah. No, objective. I thought you did really well.
Oh, that's so good. I'm super happy to hear that. I
I,
mean,
I think I put that in your review or something.
oh,
Remember, I mean, you asked for feedback, so I thought I put that there as well. So
oh, thank yeah, no, I read it and I'm really grateful. And to be honest, like that's the kind of honestly when it was more of an experiment. I was like, do I like training and do people who I train like me?
that's the important thing, right?
Yeah, that's so like when people give like when people like you give me good feedback, it's more like, okay, I think I'm doing something right. Like maybe I should keep this on for like a few more months. So
Yeah.
the transition between my last place of work was that was where I discovered facilitation. So a lot of my job required managing different people, like not managing as managing under me, but more like getting different stakeholders to align and agree on some things. And
Okay.
I wasn't trained. I didn't have any tools or skills to do that, but there was someone there who would design and run workshops who I became really close to. And eventually she sort of like mentored me out of my situation.
Yeah.
And I first proposed actually to my CEO. I was like, please, can I have a full-time facilitation role? And he said, no, it's not P&L. So I was like, fine, okay, then I'll leave and I'll go look for my learning opportunities elsewhere. So that was the kind of, it was super scary. This story sounds very romantic, but in reality, it was like a very, very super stressful time in my life. Like
Yeah.
I've never done this, right? Yeah. So I was like, okay,
So
yeah.
yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, no, no. What was your question?
No, because you said that was just a stressful time. But you left that job, and what happened afterwards?
Yeah. So I wanted to find ways to do it, like to practice and to just start this new career or new craft. And
Hmm.
I was super lucky because I had a very active network and people would introduce me to people and then people would then introduce me to projects. And I think people liked working with me. They liked the work that I did. And so it grew very organically and quite fast as
Interesting.
well.
So
Yeah.
let me cut in there because that's I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
So you said it grew organically. You obviously had built a lot of good relationships during the course of your career. Is that correct?
Uh, I don't, I think it was more, I'm just thinking how to describe it. It's like,
Because
it was
obviously
very,
there were people that you associated with that, like you said, helped you out somehow to get the ball rolling. So where did those people come from?
that's a good, no, that's such a good question. I hadn't really thought that deeply about it before. That's a really good question. To be fair, okay, the best analogy I have for this is it's literally like surfing. It's like sometimes the waves are small, sometimes the waves just take you up and you go, and the waves appear from
Mhm.
nowhere. And what I mean by that is, you know, it's like people introducing you to people who introduce you to people. You're curious and you go to a meeting, and this meeting, inspires you to get in touch with someone or
Yeah.
someone, yeah. And it grew like that at first. And then afterwards, it was just like someone who was at a workshop would then just use me somewhere else. So it was a very like the work sort of
It grew
speaks for
organically.
itself kind of thing.
Absolutely,
Yeah, I'm
absolutely.
not a good salesperson. Like you can't know. I'm just quite horrible at doing a pitch.
But I think you had a passion for what you were doing, so that kind of carried you. Would you say?
Yeah. That's
You're not sure.
it sounds super romantic. Like I wish I could just say passion, that's all you need. But it is like, what's the right way
It's
to put it?
terrifying.
It's terrifying, but honestly, like I think when it boils down to, doing the work that you're curious about and that you enjoy, Having people like working with you is super important. It's not, they don't have to like you, like you, but they have to feel like, it's
You add value.
super easy to
Yeah.
work. Yeah, she's not difficult. I know she will always like do a good job, and I can sleep well at night because I know she's not gonna like, do horribly. So
Sure. Sure.
yeah, it's it's and it I don't know. There's this word that came, like a friend mentioned. It was so weird. Like he was house sitting somewhere, like in the middle of Warwick Avenue, with these like beautiful, beautiful houses, and we walked into like this shared, like garden, and he said, "Imagine the amount of social capital here." And I think that's what it is. It's social capital. Like, when you do good
Wow.
work,
That's
other
that's
people.
that's really really insightful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Tola, like all the people that you've ever worked with who have a good impression of you, who then go on to do stuff and maybe have power to make, budget and like, interesting projects. The social capital is like they know you, and, that's the network that kind of helps keep your passion alive. Like that's I think where I concluded at this point. It may change. That's like my
No, I
theory.
mean,
Oh
no,
yeah.
I truly love that because only I think it was this week actually that the thought crossed my mind that the idea of networking is. I think people don't like the idea of networking because it's not natural to. Well,
Yes.
for at least a lot, it's not a natural thing to go out looking for people to
Yeah, to
connect with
use
for this for
people.
this for this for the exactly for this shared purpose of getting something out of that relationship. So I
Exactly.
think what crossed my mind was okay, rather than trying to network with people, why don't you try to build relationships or meaningful relationships with people, right?
Exactly.
Because at least when you do that, when you reach out to them, you're not just reaching out to ask for a favor. You can reach out once in a while and go, "Oh, how you doing? I remember our conversation, blah blah blah." Just so that it's a little more natural. It doesn't have to be a friendship, but almost like a respect thing where you are able to, you know, bond on a fundamentally deep level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, like you said, if they know, oh, Joy does well at what she does,
Yeah.
I respect her for that. I know she communicates well, blah blah blah. Then that's meaningful. So I like the
Yeah.
idea of building relationships rather than just simply like standing there with a cocktail and going, oh, what's the weather like today? Can you give me a can you give me that guy's number or something? It's very
Yeah.
weird. You know,
No,
um,
that's true. I think like, you know, I think at the end of the day, it depends on what your like, kind of your end philosophy is, like what you want your life
mhm,
to be, right? And some
yeah,
people have in their life, in their life motto, I want to gain power. I want to gain more money. I want to gain more influence. I think if you change that to, I want my life to be interesting, I think more people get on board with that than wanting to perform something that's self-serving. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a very
yes, yes, yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
that's why I
yeah.
decided. I want an interesting life. I want to try everything I've been curious about once and try to be really good at it, and then see
I
if
can
this
I
thing.
can see why you and Tommy are friends because that's you sound like Tommy. Like at that split for those 5-10 seconds, that sounded like Tommy exactly. Like, oh, I
I
want to try
know
something.
we were
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
this week. Oh my God. Does it feel like you're talking to your sister right now?
Well, for the last 20 seconds, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's her philosophy about life. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um.
What's
So,
your philosophy?
oh wow. That's a really good question.
Yeah. I'm
I
curious.
think it's yeah. I think it's I like to have meaning in what I do.
Yeah.
But I try not to get drowned in ideology, right? So
Yeah.
I think if similar to you, I'm doing something that I love, but it's not bringing in an adequate amount of money. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not romantic in the sense that I don't go do something. that I may not necessarily love doing, right? Like
Yeah.
going to for 9 to 5, whatever.
Yeah.
But I do like to find meaning, and
Yeah.
I also like to laugh at the world as well. I try not to take things too seriously,
Good.
because that's I think fundamentally that's my nature. Like I tend not to take things too overtly seriously.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. I because I read about Einstein. I read his biography on Albert Einstein, and the crazy hair and the genius. But he always laughed at the world. He had like a light touch about, not like he didn't take things seriously, but he kind of had a he almost scoffed. It was like, gosh, like relax, guys, like you only
Yeah.
live once, Yeah, it's not that you do stupid stuff. It's just like just calm down. So
Exactly. Like a levity. It's
yes,
sort of a levity
ex-
about everything.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
like that.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
wonderful way to live your life. Like it honestly that sounds like you it sounds like your health will last a lot longer. Like, your life be a lot longer.
that's
Like
that's
with
that's the thing about life, because I think once you realize that it's not as if it's a secret or anything, but once you have a light touch
Hmm.
going through life, then you don't let things get to you as much as you
Yeah.
possibly can. Of course, life can be overwhelming sometimes. You can't bluff your way through that,
No,
but
no, not at all. It's
no.
tough sometimes. Yeah.
But fundamentally, I think you also appreciate good people around you, because when you have good people around you, they're quite precious. So
Yes.
appreciate them. Don't take them for granted. Work
Exactly.
hard, of course. Enjoy what you do.
Yes.
Yeah, but don't drown in self pity,
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
No, they'll take care of themselves. To be honest,
Yeah.
I mean, right now we're living through the COVID period, and
Yes.
everything's gone to a halt. So it's like, what are you gonna do now?
Yeah.
So yeah. So sometimes when you think you're on top of the world or you're beneath the world, there's like a great leveler
Yes.
that everyone's just kind of like in the same spot trying to figure out where to go next.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
But
true.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
true.
absolutely. Um, PCM. Um,
You got me thinking
I,
philosophically. Like for a while, I was like looking up into like the sky.
I'm actually picturing you doing that right now.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, with your glasses as
Oh.
well. Like, oh wow, you know.
Yeah.
We will be right back. So, like I said, I think PCM is the future, because I mean, looking at, so let's take for example American politics. There's America as a nation.
Yeah.
There are two sides. There are two sides opposed,
Yeah.
and they can't talk to each other. They can't marry each other. They can't have a drink with each other. There's
Yeah.
just a divide, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that is ideological. A lot of it is evil, but a lot of it is also, I don't understand you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of
And I
course.
think and I think a lot of that is down to the fact that people are not informed as to why people do the things they do. Right. So, I mean, if you want to like just talk briefly about what PCM is, and
Yeah.
how you feel it could impact positively on such a negative situation.
Sure.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll start with how I found PCM. So
Sure.
I was super lucky about 4 years ago when I was starting this new career in facilitation. One of the first workshops I shadowed was a training in PCM. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was very lucky I got that for free. And I took whatever was taught, like all the, the types that you were talking about, and I brought it into all my work. So the main work I've been doing for the last 4 years has been designing workshops and facilitating them. And these workshops are usually about people finding problems or solving problems. So as you can imagine, if we have about 15 people who are all super smart, super motivated together in a room like this for like 3 days sometimes, there are a lot of misunderstandings that are bound to happen. And PCM has been one of the most helpful tools in helping people avoid what we call, like, what I call maybe the stuckness. Disagreements are super healthy. Like, that's the thing. Disagreements are very positive, and there's a very positive way to have disagreements. But oftentimes we don't have the tools or are aware about how to keep a disagreement positive. So, and when I say positive, what I mean is, you're not hiding what you really mean by other behaviors. You're saying things for the way they are, and it's a productive conversation. Like, it keeps moving. And I have like a couple of other tools that I use. So visuals are a very powerful way to bring a group of people onto the same page, or at least following the same thread. And what happened, I think I was thinking about this already last year. I was like, okay, I'm getting slightly bored of what I do. I mean, this is horrible. It's like about my life. I'm like, there must be a way where I don't need to be in the room for something productive to happen. Like, if these people can have this tool and are fully aware and are schooled and are actively practicing, I can be obsolete. Like, I can make myself obsolete. That was kind of the very.
I love that insight. I love that insight. Yeah.
Yeah.
You sound like Steve Jobs or something.
Romantic theory. Yeah. I mean, it sounds so compelling. Like, I remember when it first crossed my mind, I was like, I really want, like, think about how much, like, kind of like capability there will be in the room if people knew how to manage the most, like, fundamental, moment by moment, word by word, like, kind of part of an interaction, right? And I was thinking about it and talking myself out of training, because I'm not a trainer. I don't want to train people. I don't like the sound of my own voice. I don't want to be in front of people telling them what to think. Like, that was the voice that was going through my mind. And it wasn't until COVID. Like, so when COVID hit, I think I was feeling really, like, I felt really sad. Like, I was really, really sad. I was reading the news. There were stories of domestic violence going way up. And I just thought, oh my God, like, I wish there was a way I could help them. I don't know if you felt this. I definitely felt it. But
I did. Yeah.
Like,
funny enough, the podcast started around the COVID era, like around April.
Yes.
Because I felt like people need to escape, right? So if you listen to, like, the podcast series, like, I do poems. I analyze poems with my friend who's in Italy. Nice. And it's just about just trying to tear down the barriers of high art and going, let's just laugh at this. And so when people tune in, they just want to laugh and kind of switch off for like 30 minutes or whatever. So yeah. So sorry, go on.
No. I think that's a wonderful idea. Like, and it's so wonderful that, in spite of, and this is one of the things I've been reflecting on as well, like human resilience, just how in the face of something really, really tough, people can take to their creativity and make things, and not make things for themselves, which is, one reason why we're doing what we do. It is also for us, but we're also trying to do things for other people. So I think my moment was an encounter with feeling useless. Like, that was one of the first feelings that hit me. I was like, I can know and do all of these things, but in this moment, none of it matters. Like, that was the thing that I felt very stressed about. Like, I mean, I guess knowing PCM and all of that, which I'm so happy that you do, it was one of my failure patterns. Like, and it encouraged my failure patterns. So, like, after that, I was just kind of almost switched on, like how I was in my second job. I was like, my third job, I was just switched on. I didn't stop. Like, I just didn't stop since April. I was like, working every single day, like Monday to Sunday, like long hours. Sometimes I work into the night. And it was like preparing for the certification, preparing for classes, preparing, like blogs and visuals and stuff to put out. And yeah, I don't know if it's like a guilt, maybe a guilt thing. Sometimes you feel like I wish I could do more, but this is the best I can offer. But
You're definitely a persistent.
I know I am. I'm horrible. This is the thing. Like, we feel like there's more we can give, even though, like,
Yeah.
in reality, we have given, but I think we are always like we're hardest on ourselves for sure. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's a curse, blessing, a curse. Yeah, that's very very well like pointed out. I was like, you are definitely, yeah, no, that was a good reminder. But I'm calming down. I'm calming down a lot now
Good.
because yeah, it's like so this is something I learned like in a different discipline. If something happens to a complex structure, like if a complex structure experiences trauma, instead of like what it does is it swings to the other side the the spectrum, like for example, I mean, this is like such an everyday, trivial, maybe trivial, not trivial experience. It's like the guy who's been in the longest term relationship breaks up with his girlfriend, and the very next thing he does is looks for many meaningless encounters. The
Yes.
problem with that is it takes longer for that person to kind of reach an equilibrium, like to feel like he's okay again when that person swings to, the other extreme. And I didn't know that. I wish I was aware I knew of it in my head, but I wasn't aware of it when I was going through it. So now I'm kind of inching back towards equilibrium again, making sure I'm okay.
Good.
I also didn't answer your question. So shall I answer your
No,
question?
no, you did. You did to a degree. So carry on. I'm
Oh
happy
my
to carry
God. I'm
on.
sorry. No, feel free to ask me
No.
another question so I can like, and I will answer
All
it instead of
right.
giving you the long
No.
story.
No. That was perfect. I think so. We took about 5 different classes.
Oh
Each
yeah.
one was for about 2 hours, and every one of them was very impactful. So, do you? Okay, so I think just for people who are listening, PCM is about the person is about personalities, basically, and understanding different kinds of personalities.
What
Can you
does it
talk a little bit
stand
more?
for, Tola?
Sorry,
What does it stand for, PCM?
process communication model.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh yeah. No, I said that like 3 times through the interview. Come
That's good.
on,
I make the mistake of no, I make the mistake of saying PCM and never explain to people what it
Oh
actually stands for.
no. Like I said,
Okay.
I've said it like 3 times in this interview, so I think hopefully they catch
Cool.
on.
Right.
Well,
Sorry.
yes, yeah. Explain what what PCM actually is, like just generally, and how you think people could benefit from learning from about PCM.
Yeah, sure. So what is PCM? I've struggled to answer this question. It is, in short, it's an amazing tool. And this tool allows you to read people's behavior, and it gives you insight into what these behaviors are really asking for. So when someone shows you what you think might be a negative behavior or a negative, facial expression or word choice or whatever, which we catalog, by the way, in PCM, you'll know
Yeah.
that this person is asking for something, but just not explicitly. So it helps you know how to respond to them in a way that they prefer and keeps them communicating in a positive way, which is super powerful. Like in workshops, it's like high leverage, small effort, minimal effort, maximum leverage. Like that's what it looks like. Just by changing the way how you say something, not what you say, can have such a
Yeah.
huge impact. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. you've done a bunch of different classes.
Yeah,
What's been the most common personality trait you've seen?
right. I think the people I've taught so far, so I counted, I think I've done 50 classes in, I think, 3 months.
Mm,
And everyone's really different.
yeah.
Although I have to say, groups who come as a group, they tend to have quite similar personalities within the group. So what I find the most jarring is when I'm with a group and they have very strong kind of maybe they share three very strong floors, and then I walk into a different group and they're showing three very different floors.
Right.
That's yeah. So no, I haven't seen a kind of a very um, a
Clear
clear
pattern.
a clear pattern. I
Mm,
think we have to
mm,
qualify this for listeners. So what PCM does is it allows you to profile your personality, and we have like 6 different types in us. And
mm-hmm.
what it helps you to do is, like Tola's question, figure out what someone's like kind of personality structure is. So how much of each of these personality types are inside this person. That's one of the features of process communication model. Yeah, but that's a good question though.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I learned was that all these personality types exists in all of us. Right. I think there are 6, and
Yeah.
they exist in all of us. Um, and I guess the personality flaws change as we go through different phases of life.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I'm getting somewhere. So I think what I want people to know, I guess what I want you to tell people is how. Let me try to qualify this question, because what I want to do is I don't want to give too much away, because I want people to actually be interested enough to want to engage with your
Oh,
course
we
without
can
giving
we
too much away.
we can give loads
Um,
away. Like
sorry.
we can give loads away. You're welcome to like be open about everything.
All right, cool. I think the toughest personality trait that we discussed was the imaginer.
Oh, you mean for you? For you?
Maybe for me, because no, I think generally, I think I should actually describe, because the imaginer was someone that you couldn't really help. Not really. Am I right in saying that?
Oh, that's interesting. So interesting. You see, folks, just by Tola revealing that gives me so much information. So it's what's the right way to put it? So let's go technical here. In my structure, the
Right.
imaginer floor, which is a personality type, is in my 4th floor. And oh no, my 3rd floor, and I have phased through it too. So it's something that I'm extremely comfortable with. Like firstly, well, I don't like this experiencing the distress that comes with that belongs to that floor. But if I meet someone who shows me those signs, I know what to do and I know how to give them the space that they need. So having no expression, having no reaction, having no, feedback it is miscommunication, but I
Right.
know it's communication and we know what to give to them. Like, giving them space and time, telling them, being directive about what you want them to do. Yeah. But when someone says that, oh my God, I cannot deal, it's so like, I just don't get them. It's super hard. It gives all of us some clue that, this type might be at the very top of this person's personality structure. It might be like kind of their smallest floor in their personality structure, which means do not speak to them in abstract. Like don't like leave things hanging and speak in full sentences. Don't like don't wander in your thought. Be present. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go through the remaining 5. So there's the thinker.
Yeah.
There's the persister.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the rebel.
You're a good student. This is so good. This is really good. I'm so happy. We finished
Don't
our part
celebrate.
last week, right?
Don't celebrate. Don't celebrate just yet. Let
No
me get
pressure.
through the
No
five.
pressure.
So you've got the rebel.
Yes.
You got the imaginer, as I said,
Yes. That's four. Yeah.
and you've got the promoter,
Yes. Very good.
and you've got one more, which
The orange one.
yes, I know the description because it's probably my least favorite.
Oh.
I couldn't say that during your workshops because I didn't want to offend anyone. But that's my least favorite, definitely. That's the harmonizer. That's it.
Yes. Oh,
Yes,
that was
fantastic,
so good. Can you insert
fantastic.
like a sound effect, like a cheering sound effect here? This is
I'm
that's
gonna do that. I'm gonna do that just for
so
you.
good. I'm so proud. That's amazing.
um, the rebel was a fascinating one for me actually because I think everyone wants to identify with the rebel because rebel is kind of free and against the grain, goes against the grain. Is that really the definition of a rebel? Like, could you explain what the rebel actually is for us?
Yeah, of course. So I feel like, okay, the rebel is weirdly the only personality type that doesn't translate well in other languages. So, for example, rebel in Latin America is extremely negative. So I want to be
Interesting.
very careful not to. Yeah. It's the only one that doesn't work culturally. So if we,
Interesting.
I know, can you imagine like bring PCM to Colombia and say you are rebel and like no way now I'm gonna cut you. No. So yeah, that's the only one that doesn't work. And we want to be careful not to paint them as like, like anarchists and really like against order. They're not like that. They're spontaneous.
Absolutely.
They're
Absolutely.
spontaneous, which you are. Like I see a lot of that trait in you. Spontaneous. They're fun. They can see the humor in everything. Like,
Right.
that levity you talked about? This
Right.
type is good at living in that levity. And I want to be so careful. So we don't call people by type. We have all the six in us, by the way. But
Mhm.
some people have a very dominant personality type. And if your dominant personality type is rebel, it's very likely that you are super humorous. You love making jokes. You put posters around the wall. You love getting up to the water cooler just to talk to someone to get some, like, contact. But yeah, and they're very fun. They don't think before they say anything, and they're super creative. There's no filter in their process. That's the wonderful thing
Interesting.
about the rebel type. Yeah.
That's the fascinating thing about the rebel because, like you said, it doesn't really translate well, like you said, all the same way in different languages or different cultures.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing even within PCM because when you think of a rebel innately, you think of maybe James Dean, you think of you think of a guy with a leather jacket, that sort of thing, who's
Yeah.
cool. But that
Funny.
but
Yes.
that's one dimension, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, let's think about let me have it. Rebel, okay. Perfect, like iconic rebel behaviors. Jim Carrey.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
iconic.
Yeah.
More than James Dean. James Dean is probably more promoter type, like promoter type.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I found so fast. That's why I brought the rebel because it's like it's not obvious what a rebel actually stands for, especially
No, it's
when it
not.
comes to PCM. Yeah,
I wish they
yeah,
called them. I think they called them something else at the very start of the theory. I think they called them like the reactor, but it doesn't mean anything. Like the reactor.
yeah. Everyone reacts, right?
Yeah, I know. Because rebel has very negative connotations still, even in English. But we want to draw attention to their positive traits. And on a good day, they're super fun, spontaneous, humorous. On a bad day, they start to provoke, like they provoke and blame. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's more than a cause of anything. Yeah.
How about the harmonizer? Because the harmonizer is, well, I guess the name speaks for itself. What are the how kind of harmonizer go off the rails? Like, what is it that can make a harmonizer go? Oh my gosh! Like, I can't do this anymore.
Uh, Okay, I have to be super pedantic because I did I had to go through a whole certification
No,
process
please do, please do.
to make sure that I don't say you can make someone be this way. Like, so we cannot make a harmonizer this way, and no one is a harmonizer. I just have to. I have to do that because that's
No,
in my
please do it, please do it. Yeah,
flavor.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
They might take my license away. No, so they might. It might be like Joy's not teaching properly. So no, and this is on record, right? So I have to be really careful. All right.
Nah, no, you're fine with us. You're fine with us.
Okay, the right way to describe that scenario is if someone has a harmonizer phase. So that's a way to talk about how they go into distress, right? So if someone has a harmonizer phase, then what they will do or what they need is to be recognized as a person. And I'll give you an example. This happened in training recently. There's someone who was expressing how important it was for her at work that she wasn't just a number, that she was a person, and that she wants to be spoken to like a human being. And I know we all want that, but some people don't care and they just want to get on with the task. These people care about being seen for people, like as a person. And if you want them, you can't make them, but if you want to invite them to go off the rails, which I strongly do not advise, please, please, please don't disqualify me. But if if you wanted them to, or wanted to invite them, or if the way that they start to show distress is when they don't get enough,
Yes.
when they don't get that need met. What do I mean by that? Don't care about what they have to say. Don't talk about small things like not care about their weekend. Just treat them like, just treat them for their work. Don't treat them, personally for who they are. Those are, I mean, yeah, those are the ways that will invite them into distress, which is horrible. And we don't do that. We learn we learn PCM, so they don't do that. And if they start to distress, what they will start to do is they'll begin to make involuntary mistakes, like do things to annoy you, and maybe don't do their work as well. And they can do their work. They're good at their job, but they want you to recognize them as a person, but now negatively. Like, you're really annoying. You're very needy. You're useless. You're clumsy. All of those things. They're still, it's a way to get their needs met, but in a negative way this time. Being recognized for their person. Yeah.
Interesting.
Dark. I don't like. Yeah. I don't like. I don't like talking about how each of them distress, but.
No, it's reality of life, and I think if like I said, I think if there was more of an awareness of PCM generally,
Yeah.
then there'll be. I'm not saying that there'll be peace on earth, you know what I mean? But
No peace
I
on
think
earth. No peace on earth.
absolutely that's yeah, exactly. The idea is that you can, like you rightly said earlier, that you can diffuse situations,
Yes.
at least a little more frequently, read each other better.
Yeah. Have positive disagreements. Very positive
Yeah,
disagreements. Yeah.
absolutely. How prevalent is PCM in the workplace? Do you know?
How what, sorry?
How prevalent? Like, is it been promoted in the workplace? Is it something that's been integrated in the corporate world, for instance?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is more commercial than anything else, but for training to be lucrative, selling to corporates is always, and actually selling anything to corporates is always people's, like, kind of, that's where they turn into a business. So there are lots of different, like, Fortune 500 companies that have used PCM before. I mean, Tinder Europe, I know, Pixar, they've used it. It was mentioned in, was it Ed, I can't remember his last name. He wrote Creativity Inc. There's a mention of PCM in there. And every like just any big businesses, they would have at some point like called PCM in. I think the most difficult thing about PCM is practice. So and with all corporate trainings, you bring people in and you have them there for 3, maybe 5 days, and then they leave. And
Yes.
if you have a group of people who weren't interested in training to begin with, even though they might have thought it was very interesting at the end, it's very hard to activate that. But anyway, like
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, I
I
don't.
think
Yeah,
I
sorry.
think the idea, yeah, I think the idea that you learn something interesting doesn't necessarily mean you're going to follow through with it, because, which is why I also wanted to have this conversation with you, because I also wanted to kind of keep my interest peaked as well.
Yeah,
But how do you, as someone who facilitates workshops of this nature, how do you think you could encourage people to keep engaging with PCM? Is it by the way you teach them? Is it by the way the examples? Is it about giving refresher lessons? Like how do you think you can do that?
yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like each time you ask me a question, there's always like more that I want to say about the previous question. It's like everyone's like,
No,
oh,
no, no. I mean, like I told you, this is very it's fairly relaxed. So go
yeah,
ahead and jump back and forth. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think my initial mission was to bring PCM outside of corporate. Like that was. I mean, to be honest, I mean this is on record. I might regret saying this, but like I don't think I was energized or inspired by the idea of going to a corporate and giving training. That was just something. Maybe it's from my rebel phase, but I just want to do something that breaks things. I want like breaks the status quo. And
Yeah,
immediately when like COVID first came out, I thought, oh, like families, like how
yes.
amazing. But I also know families don't have time, so I have to think about different ways to try to get through to them. And one of them, I think one of the things I'm trying to do is so I'll list all the different ways I'm trying to keep PCM alive for the me and yous of this world. So
Right.
I'm developing this like kind of Sesame Street like puppet show with my sister, where we
Amazing.
show aspects. Yeah, it's super fun. Like show aspects of PCM, but we don't give them their proper names. But it's kind of a way
Mm,
to show people like, hey, you know what? Like we all have these wonderful ways of perceiving the world, and we are pretty different. And then showing
mm-hmm.
these traits more so they can think, as they're eating their cereal with an iPad propped in front of them, they might think, my mommy does that, or my daddy does that. And
Mm, mm,
start to make sense of like, oh, okay, like this is not behavior because they're angry at me, but maybe there's something else, like, part of it. And I'm trying with encouragement from your sister. Uh, she was so I've been so against it's again rebel without a cause. Imagine me in my I was like so against MOOCs. I'm like, I don't like MOOCs, down to mass online courses. And your sister was like, Joy, if you want lots of people to have access to this, you'll have to scale, and scaling is not a bad thing. And you may have to just put yourself on video. And I was like,
that's Tommy definitely. That's the sort of thing she would say. Yeah.
that's what she would say. That's what she did tell me. And I'm starting to video record myself and build an online course, but in 5 minutes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can go back on and just like check out the topics that you want to look back on. Um,
That's very very that's very sound advice actually, because that's literally what she did when she started her business. She kind of gravitated to the point. It kind of grew to the point where she went, you know what, people need to be able to see me, or they won't be able to identify with the brand, right? And I
yes.
think in your case, you'd be doing both, because you'll be, of course, people will gravitate to your brand because they know you, but also it's a I guess it's an effective way of ensuring that people can always refer back to the lessons that they something that they might have missed, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
mm, mm.
And yeah, let's do a shout out to Tommy,
Shout out to Tommy.
vegan vegetarian.com.
Exactly. Exactly. Veganigerian.com.
Wise, wise sister. So, um, and then what else am I trying to do? So another thing she was very excited about. I'm building this library of videos. So what people can
Oh,
do
wow. Good.
is, and I've done this visually already. Like I've drawn out all the facial expressions and stuff which you saw, but I want to put it on this interactive map. So when people click into a behavior, they can watch YouTube videos of other people wearing this behavior so they can get more familiar with like, oh, like that raised eyebrow, that is what it
Those were
looks like.
very useful. Those were very useful, actually.
Yeah.
Really brought it to life, actually. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
that's a sound idea. Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of conscious of time.
yeah,
This
no,
has
no.
been yeah. But this has been a wonderful conversation.
I'm glad. I'm really happy. I think so too.
Yeah, yeah. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that we got to um talk about PCM in some depth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would love to have you on the podcast again at some point because I think there's so much more that we can talk about. I guess we'll catch up on your progress
Yeah.
and also explore PCM's evolution. Because there's
You
always
can
something new to
do.
learn.
You
Yeah.
can do like selfishly for you. It's
Oh, yeah, I mean, this is predominantly for me.
yeah.
It's just I'm recording it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean
I'm
what
recording it, so it's fine.